Welcome to the Big Movement Podcast. If you're ready to create results and make huge strides in your business, finances, personal development, and health, then you're in the right place. Pushing past excuses and powering through procrastination can be a challenge alone. Here, you'll get the support, tools, and knowledge you need to get to the level you desire in your business and life. Let's get started with your host, Byron Ingram.
And welcome to another episode of the Big Movement Podcast. Today we have a special guest. We have Danielle Gomez. Danielle is the producer of Inspired by 11 movie and the author of the upcoming book of By 11, which is pretty darn amazing, I think. And she's also the co-founder and vice president of Serious Take Productions, a company specializing in the art of creative storytelling, helping entrepreneurs and small business owners build their brands and emotionally connect with their audiences with the power of video. So let's give a warm welcome to Danielle. So Danielle, welcome.
Hey, thanks for having me on today.
Oh, you're welcome. It's an incredible day to talk with incredible people. So here we are.
I love that.
Oh, yes. So how did you get into the world of video production and producing movies, writing books? It's like, what's next? I mean, you're conquering the world one frame at a time here.
Yeah, so it's actually an interesting story. I worked as an operations manager for 2.5 years, and my partner actually started Serious Take Productions back in 2011. But she was working more along the lines as a freelancer, and didn't more as a technician in the business. And so I was just talking about how I felt completely miserable because I was working not just the typical 9 to 5. I was working like 1 to 10, 7 to 5, sometimes 7 to midnight. It was insane. And I was working a lot at nights, weekends, and holidays. And so I was like, you know what, something has to change. I'm just not passionate about this anymore. The one thing that I was super passionate about was people. And I loved being a part of the company because I worked with some amazing people. And that's why it was so hard for me to leave. But I decided, you know what, it's time. I have to go. And my partner pushed me to quit. And I wasn't going to, because I was like, yeah, right. Like, I have a stable salary. Like, I just got out of college. It was a really good salary for being out right out of college. And I just didn't want to do it. And so finally I was like, I typed up a resignation letter, and then the next morning I was going to hand it in. Mm-hmm. And then I decided, no, I don't want to. I was like, no, I'm not going to. And then my partner was like, no, you just do it. Like, we'll figure it out. It's okay. We can run the company together and just push it forward. And I was like, all right, well, I'm going to go in. So I go in with the letter in hand, and my boss looks at me and starts laughing. And I was like, what? And he was like, what is that, a resignation letter? And I was like, well, actually it is. So I just handed it to him, and he was shocked because at that time I had just gotten a raise. And I was definitely on the fast track of moving up the company, like really quickly. And so he was really shocked by that. He just didn't understand why. And, you know, I explained it. And so then I just jumped full time in to Serious Take Productions. Luckily, I had 3 weeks of paid vacation that I could still use up so we could kind of tweak things, figure things out, and really get going from there. And that's when at the time, Tamara was actually working with Starving Artist and from different The Voice, American Idol, and the X Factor, and she was doing a project with them, but she wasn't making any money. And she was just super passionate about this project, and I was like, you know, Tamara, you're not making any money. Like, if you want to move forward in the business, if you want to increase growth and have more impact, you need to start working with the right clientele. And we talked about this because I was reading Invent It, Sell It, Bank It by Lori Grenier, that book at the time. And I was like, why don't we work with entrepreneurs and business owners? They need video production, branding trailers, you know, let's do it. And it clicked. And Tamara was like, all right, well, let's do this. And so she loves producing documentaries. And she was like, well, let's go interview some top entrepreneurs, learn from them, and then that will help accelerate our growth. And I was like, all right, good idea. And she's like, well, what should we call it? And I was like, Inspired by 22. And she was like, no. She's like, that's too many. She imagine going and flying out everywhere and filming 22 people. It gets really costly. But we were like, she actually throws out, she's like, why not inspired by 11? Because we saw the number 11 popping up everywhere on clocks, on parking spots, addresses. It was just all over the number 11. And so I was like, all right, well, let's do it. And so then she starts reaching out to 11 top entrepreneurs. I'm not sure if you've heard of Pat Flynn from Smart Passive Income or John Lee Dumas, but they're really widely popular in their niche. And so we just decided to start interviewing these 11 entrepreneurs, flying out to their locations. And we had no budget for this. We literally came out of pocket over $25K just to produce this documentary, where we've been able to learn from each of them, produced a 93-minute documentary, showcased it in theaters where over 250 entrepreneurs came and watched it. But not just that, we've been able to accelerate our business growth to over 6 figures by applying everything that we've learned throughout the documentary.
Wow. Now that's going all in to produce a documentary. I mean, that just takes a whole level of guts, that you're going all into it. It's not like playing it halfway or playing it safe. You're just making it happen.
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the big things about Tamara and I is we are huge action takers. When we have our mindset to it, we're going to make it happen. And we had some really tough times during producing this documentary that I actually wrote the book Inspired by 11 because in the movie, we didn't talk about our journey at all. We just showcased the 11 entrepreneurs, them talking about different aspects of running a business, but we didn't talk about what we had to go through to really make this happen. And so in the book, I talked about how we were going to film Michael Parrish Dudell, the Shark Tank author, Jumpstart Your Business. And I believe it was in San Diego that we were interviewing him, and we were living in Seattle at the time. So we didn't have the funds to fly out, and it was really just challenging because we're at that point where we've already produced a good majority of production for the documentary, but we needed to fly out and go film him. So we decided to drive in this old car. Oh, no. And that's about a 19 to 20 hour drive. So we were like, oh, what are we doing? But we're going to make this happen. We had all the production gear in the back of the car. It was insane. So I'm from New Orleans, Louisiana. I'm not used to driving around mountains, but if you are, you'll know where I'm going with the story. But we're driving the car around a mountain with the air on full blast because it's hot as hell out there. And all of a sudden, the car's hood starts smoking. And we're like, oh my gosh, what is going on? We're going around this mountain. We're at who knows what elevation. It was really scary. And we're right on the border of Oregon and California. So we pulled over right there in front of the Oregon sign. Welcome to Oregon sign, right? And we popped the hood and it's just smoking. So we realized the car was overheating. We had to wait a certain amount of time for it to cool down. And it was just insane because we're like, oh, this sucks. We have to be at our shoot and, the next morning, or I think actually it was on Monday, and this was a Sunday. So we looked and we Googled everything that we needed to know to fix the car to at least get it to the nearest gas station. And we decided we put some water in the coolant area. I believe that's what it is. Don't quote me because yeah, there you go. And so we're coasting down this mountain, emergency lights on, trying to get to the nearest gas station to get some coolant. And they have one bottle left. And so we pour it in the car and we're like, yeah, I think we got lucky. We're going to make it. And then all of a sudden, the coolant just starts flying everywhere. And we're like, what the heck is going on? And we noticed that there was a hole in the radiator pump. So we're like, screwed. So we had to get it towed that day. We went and stayed at a hotel in the area. It was gosh, I wish I remembered the name of the area, but it was just a small little town. And then we called a rental place to rent a car. Now, at that moment, we could have just been like, screw this, like, we'll just reschedule the shoot, not a problem, whatever, like, we'll, it's fine. But we were like, no, we're going to rent a car, we're going to drive the rental car there, and we're going to make the shoot on time. So we literally drove all day, and we got to the shoot 2 hours before it was about to happen on no sleep either. So it was just really crazy, and we ended up getting it done, and Michael's portion of the documentary ended up he gave a lot of value. So we were so glad that we were able to make that happen, and be able to tell his story throughout the documentary too. So it was totally worth it.
Wow, now that is commitment, because I think so many people would just say, screw it, let's reschedule it because of one obstacle, instead of focusing on how do you make it happen, finding a rental car company that's open, and then just keep to drive the whole night knowing that you had that small window to make it work.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I think that it's always about commitment, though. It's you either wonder what if, or you just make it happen. And my role is, and it's not to ask yourself what if, it's about getting it done. Whenever you have that question come up in your head, if you're like, well, what if I would have did this, or what if I would have published that book, that's a sign that you need to go out and do it.
Right, exactly. Just do it anyways, and then think about, well, now what? What's that next step? And just keep moving forward. So it sounds like you had some trials in your life as you were working on this documentary, because so many times people think about the after effects, like, this is amazing, or you're doing all this successful stuff, but what were some of those other hard parts about your journey as you're getting to this point? Because people need to understand that not everything's always rosy, because people don't talk about the struggles.
Yeah, absolutely. I think in general is that when you're in motion and when you're in momentum and doing, you're going to encounter more and more obstacles. And the way that you respond to it is going to be the most important critical aspect of doing something. When I used to manage people, when I first started out, I was very reactive. And I learned that I wasn't evoking the right outcome when I was reactive. And so I learned to be more proactive and ask more open-ended questions to make things happen. So throughout this journey, it's been very important that as we're in motion, that we're asking those critical questions to important people that we trust. So we learned quickly that we had to build a network of people, a community of people that we could fall back on and talk about our trials and tribulations, but with people that we trusted, that are not going to expose it to the world. Oh, Danielle failed at this, but to actually come up with solutions for that. I think that it's also important. Some of the struggles is that when you're on your journey, some people may come to you and ask to be a partner in your business. And for us, it was when we started gaining some momentum here, we had a bunch of people coming to us, and what they were asking for in a partnership was basically, hey, can you shoot free videos for me? And when you're in that scenario, you have to understand it has to be a win-win on both parties. Can't just be overgiving. We were overgiving to certain people that we trusted, and it was hard because we weren't seeing any reciprocation. And so that was one of the harder challenges, because you hope that people are going to promote you or help you out after you help them out, but that's not always the case. And even with producing a documentary, not everybody's going to promote your product, even the people that are involved in it. And so you have to understand that it's really something that you have to figure out the strategy for no matter what. And you also have to realize to be patient. For a while, I was hoping that by doing X, we're going to, achieve XXX result. And I was getting frustrated because I wasn't seeing the results really quickly. And then I realized that, just like Warren Buffett's quote is, no matter how great the talent or efforts are that you're doing, sometimes it just takes extra time. And if you can't produce a baby in 1 month, you can't produce a baby in 1 month by getting 9 women pregnant. So,
right.
It's just...
There's probably some people that need to understand
patience.
That. Right.
Yeah, exactly. Right? That's just one quote. But I think that just being patient in your entrepreneurial journey, you're not going to have success overnight. And some people might showcase that on social media as, oh my gosh, I generated over 6 figures in one day. But that's not how it works. And I think that's some important lessons that I've learned on this journey.
Right, exactly. It's so many times, if you think about that image you see floating around on social media every now and then, the picture of the iceberg, people only focus in on the tip of it, like, oh my gosh, this person's so successful now. This was all overnight, and not realizing there was the countless nights trying to get technology to work, or the thousands of no's they heard along the way. And people don't focus in on that, not realizing that it was a process to get there.
Yeah, exactly. It's the same thing as sales in general. Like, sometimes you have to do 6 follow-ups before you lock in one client, but nobody talks about that, right? Because they only talk about the end result. And that's why we didn't put ourselves in the documentary, because we didn't want it to be about Tamara and me. We wanted it to be about the 11 entrepreneurs, because it seems that people don't really care about the struggles and tribulations in real time. They won't take you as seriously until they see that you've achieved XXX. So if I'm here and I'm saying I've, produced, 1.2 million, people are attracted to that, but then they try to reach back out to you to figure out what were your trials and tribulations, and a lot of that material has gotten lost because nobody's recorded it. So I think that I really enjoy you asking these questions, because I probably will forget about some of these trials I went through down the line. So.
And I think it's just important because it's part of that journey. It's about who makes us what we are today. Because if you think about it, if you didn't have that struggle of, with your car, starting to overheat and you're coasting down the side of a mountain, you don't necessarily know what level or what extent you would go to in terms of meeting a commitment. That's pretty extreme to be able to do it, where most would give up.
Yeah, exactly. And then I think that, I don't know if you've heard in the book 3 Feet from Gold or the book
Yes.
Stickability. Have you heard about those?
Yes.
Another thing that I've helped with some of my trials and tribulations is whenever I'm going through something, I go look for a book that's going to help me with that. So right when I was thinking about giving up, I read the book 3 Feet from Gold. And that helped me with my mindset of, like, you can achieve this, you can get through it, you just have to stick to it. And I think that's really important. I don't know if are you a big reader, Byron?
Oh, yes. I love to read.
Cool. What's your favorite book?
Wow. There's so many. It's almost like, what am I wanting to solve? Because I have different books that I love for different reasons. Like, one of the books I love, like I read this year, is called Brain Fluent, where it's all about neuroscience, what compels people to make decisions, how they go about doing them, all those factors that go into it, which is, I think, is fascinating. Some people would find the topic incredibly boring, but to me, I love behavior and what inspires people to take specific actions.
Wow. Yeah, that's really cool. I agree with you completely, because, there's different points where I have different problems, so I read a different book that correlates with it. So, yeah, it just got me thinking of, I'm a big reader, but my business partner hates reading. She hasn't even read my book yet. I was like, when are you going to read my book? And she's like, do you have it on Audible yet, or audio? I was like, no. So I need to start working on that. But I totally relate with other book lovers out there. So, there's one book that I highly recommend that Pat Flynn recommended on our documentary. It's called The War of Art by Stephen Pressfield. And so whenever I feel some kind of fear inside of me, just like doing this podcast today with you, I felt resilience coming up, like, oh, I'm going to cancel it. Like, no, I'm just kidding. I wouldn't have done that. But I think about Stephen Pressfield because he says whenever you feel that resistance, you need to do it anyway.
Right.
So that's something that sticks with me. And everything that I do is you need to get out of your comfort zone. That's for sure.
Right, definitely. If you stay in your comfort zone, the results are always going to be the same thing because you're not doing anything different than you've done before. But the moment you step outside of it, well, that means you're stretching yourself. It's like going to the gym. If you're always just keeping the setting, let's say on the cross trainer or whatever on one, or you're just picking up like the really light weights, where the wind could blow them over, you're never going to get into a better physical condition. It's when you push yourself to the extreme, like, oh my gosh, 12 reps later, this hurts. This is pushing my limits. That's where the growth happens.
Yeah, I totally agree with that.
So we have to really focus on those things to get there. So obviously, you've had these struggles to get there to where you are now. When did you start seeing the benefits of you invested $25,000 into producing this documentary? You got it into theaters. When was it like, oh my gosh, it's paying off? When was that moment?
Yeah, I think when you're an entrepreneur, you need to know your numbers. So one of the things that I noticed is when things started to click was the fact that our revenue started increasing. But not just that, we were impacting more people. We started building the connections with people, building the relationships, and growing our community of entrepreneurs, where it wasn't just about, promote Inspired by 11 or promote Serious Take Productions or our Ultimate Stage Experience event. It was about promoting each other and helping each other move on to the next level. So the way that I started to see things click and the benefits from it was when our community of entrepreneurs started growing more, and our revenue as a bonus started growing on top of that.
Right. It's always about the people at the end of the day. It's amazing when you think about how many times it's easy for an entrepreneur to get stuck on the numbers. But if you realize that if you focus on growing the community and impacting more lives, the money and revenue will naturally, as a byproduct, grow.
Exactly. Totally.
Because it reminds me of, it was years ago, and I was having a conversation with a former Vietnam POW. And it was one of those moments when you're sitting down talking to someone, like you're just listening because it's just a smart thing to do. And okay, I'm just going to listen because if I get that look, like, okay, that's just not a look you ever want to get, because like that's the look of shut up because I'm telling you to. And it was one of the best pieces of advice I ever heard. It was always focus in on taking care of the people. The rest of it will take care of itself. If you do it the other way, you're not going to win.
Yeah, completely. I totally agree with that. I think that that's probably one of the biggest mistakes entrepreneurs make in the beginning, is that they're chasing that money. And that's a problem, because if you're chasing money, you're not going to be growing. You're not going to be growing money-wise or relationship-wise. It all boils down to having meaningful relationships in the end. It's like, what are you doing to build your network? And I heard a guy named Michael Griffith quote that, excuse me, I have a list, by the way, but he said that if you don't communicate with your network at least every 90 days, then you don't have a network. And
Wow.
That's powerful, because think about it. I mean, it's just like Keith Ferrazzi. I think that's how you say his name. He talks about in his book, Never Eat Alone, that relationships are like a muscle. You should be using them more, not, steering away from it. So like little things that we do to stay connected is we invite people out to lunch or to dinner, or we go get coffees, or we'll do something of value for them. Maybe we're having an event, and we'll be like, hey, we'll give you a free headshot, or just to do things that we know are meaningful to other people to continue building on those relationships is very important for us. And also one big thing that adds a lot of value is making meaningful introductions. So if you know somebody that may want to be on like John Lee Dumas's podcast, like that's a relationship that we've built. And so Tamara has been, she'll occasionally make an introduction to John and be like, hey, I think this person would be a great fit for your podcast. Here you go. She'll make that introduction. So I think it's important to know what people want and need, and then do something that is going to be of value to them to continue building on your relationship.
Oh, definitely. And that's extremely powerful, because if you think about making meaningful introductions and you do that on a consistent basis, you're helping out so many people. If you're using that example with Tamara introducing someone to John Lee Dumas, here's something that now he has someone of value to put onto his podcast. But then also there's that notion of, wow, she took the time to introduce me to meet one of my needs. And then over time, it's, what can I do for her? How can I add value in return to her life? And it becomes reciprocating.
Exactly. I mean, a funny message that we just got recently was somebody asking us to make an introduction to Kanye, to Kelly Clarkson, to like all of these people that were like, what? Like, and we were shocked by the message because of the fact that when you want somebody to do something for you, you need to add value to them first.
Right.
Don't just try to get into their network without actually doing anything. Like recently I'm a contributor for a magazine called Boss Babe, and I have people reach out to me all the time asking me to promote their book on there. And so don't just go in straight for the ask of like me benefiting you right away. Like, what can you do for me? Like, how can you build that relationship as well? Because the way that we've built relationships is we've worked hard to add value to their other people's lives first. And so I want to see, more of that reciprocated.
Right, exactly. It's so critical you do that, because it never fails. If you get those people who come up out of the blue, you haven't talked to them in ever, and they will ask, "Oh, can I get an introduction to so and so?" And inside you're thinking, "Wait, we haven't talked in years, and out of the blue, okay." And that you've put things out there. They've never shared any of your posts, never shared a video, never liked or commented on anything. But now they want something like, okay.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean,
yeah, and I'm not saying that people need to send me flowers or like any of that. Like, it could be as simple as what you just said: like a post, share my post, or maybe share a video that we produced, or something cool that is gonna make me notice you. I see that you've been liking my stuff. That's cool. But that's how we've built relationships with the 11 people that were in our film. We went and liked their stuff first, and we went and shared posts, and we read their books. Like, I have Pat Flynn's book, Will It Fly? We bought 11 copies to give out at our film premiere, and we bought the Freedom Journal from John Lee Dumas to give out at our premiere. So sometimes that's the types of things that you need to do to build those relationships.
Right, exactly. And just in case anyone's curious, what type of flowers do you like again?
So I'm not too much of a flower person because they die right away. I'm a book person, so anybody can win my heart by sending me a business book. I love books, so it's an obsession. But yeah, I mean, what about you? What is something that you love?
And things that I love, I love introductions to people to have great conversations, or if someone says, "Oh my gosh, you've got to read this book," those types of things. But I think knowledge and relationships are the most valuable things in the world. So that's the way to really win me over. like lunch, like I'm a picky eater, so that doesn't necessarily do it for me. I'd rather have a great conversation, because what happens, you go out to eat a lot of times, your mouth is full, so like I won't get to hear what you're talking about, so just talk.
I know, I can totally relate to that, totally. So, that's awesome. Yeah, no, thanks for sharing that. And I appreciate you inviting me on your podcast today. That means a lot.
Oh, sure, definitely, because it's really powerful when you can be able to do that. So now, obviously, you've created this documentary. What was, let's say, 1 to 3 of the biggest lessons that you've learned from it that people just have to know about when they say, these are great, I really want to watch this documentary? So what's a little preview of this?
Yeah. So I've learned one thing from all of the entrepreneurs. For some key takeaways is from Alison Maslon, who is a business coach in Cardiff by the Sea. She talks about saying yes to success. And that resonated with me because of the fact is so many times people will come to you and ask you, well, do you do virtual reality? Do you do post-production for X show? Or do you film reality TV shows? And when you're in the beginning stages of entrepreneurship, you should say yes, whether you know how to do it or not, and figure it out later. And so that resonated with me in the beginning of our journey because we were doing that. And we were actually doing post-production for a couple of reality shows and a lot of different things. But then what started to click is once you're on a certain level, you need to niche down. You can't do too many different side projects because it's taken away from what you need to be focusing on. So that was one of the key takeaways in the beginning. The second key takeaway was from Pat Flynn from smartpassiveincome.com. He talks about niching down. And so we decided to niche down with our company and give out 3 specific products. And one is relevant for speakers. It's called the Ultimate Stage Experience. And then branding trailers, we work with high-level entrepreneurs. Occasionally, we'll take on a couple of corporate clients. But so that's just a couple of our products that I want to talk about that we niche down on. Like, for instance, the Ultimate Stage Experience is we create a speaker trailer for speakers that want to get out there more, that they can use that as a marketing tool to be able to get more speaking engagements. So that's an example of niching down. So when you're an entrepreneur, you need to figure out who is your ideal clientele, and then niche down on that. And that was a key lesson for us. And then I would say, gosh, there's so many others that gave awesome feedback. I would say that Chris Ducker talked about stress levels and burning out. He created his virtual staff finder company. I believe that's the name. And he talks about, as an entrepreneur, like, we don't really have balance. We just kind of go for it and we end up getting stressed out. And how do you maintain that entrepreneurial burnout? And for me, I'm just thinking about it right now because we just had our big event and I'm kind of burnt out. And so we're going to be taking a trip to Italy for my birthday in like a week and a half here too. So I can get away from the burnout feeling. And we're literally, sometimes you just need to unplug for the week, put up an auto responder saying that, you're away for the week and be done with it. And I think that those are some key lessons. But yeah, there's just so many different important topics that the entrepreneurs covered, from giving back to, delegating to building your blogging network. That's in the film. And if anybody wants to watch it, we do have a free link up at inspiredby11.com to watch the 93-minute documentary.
Wow. Now, those were some powerful tips because so many people, they start off with being super selective instead of say yes, figure it out. Like, it's not that hard because it's either you know how to do it yourself or you can pay somebody that does know how to do it. There's always a way.
Yeah, exactly.
It's just a matter of doing it. That's the challenge for people.
Yep, definitely. And also, I think that when you're saying yes in the beginning phases, you can learn more about what the market is needing and then take it from there. But you don't want to get pulled all over the place. And some of the, it's interesting because different levels will say different things. Like there's other entrepreneurs out there that are producing billions in their business where they're like, learn how to say no. And I think once you hit a certain level, you do need to start learning how to say no
Right.
if you want to continue moving forward in your business.
Right, exactly. I think where it comes down to understanding how to say no to things, because there's always opportunities that come up, and this is what I tell myself, asking myself a simple question. Does this help me move further towards my ultimate goal? If yes, then you can do it. If no, then it's automatically a no. Because someone might say, oh, you've got to look at this great business opportunity, blah, 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 blah. That doesn't help me with my objectives right here, so then that becomes a no. So
Exactly. I totally agree with that.
because there's always the shiny objects, the squirrels, pink elephants, and everything else you want to call them that will pop up. You have to learn to say no to those to stay focused on your objective, because then the opportunities that you need to say yes to, they will continuously appear in front of you.
Exactly. Yeah, it's interesting because being on this journey, I've seen a lot of entrepreneurs quit what they're doing and start another side hustle or another gig. And I'm just like, what are you doing? Focus on one thing. Just like that book out there, The One Thing. That would be a
Right.
starter for some of those entrepreneurs to read. But yeah, I mean, it's important to stay focused on that one thing. Or in our case, we have three things that we focus on. But to move forward on that, we've been tweaking and refining specific things to make it better and better as we go, and we're building on that. Instead of giving up on one of your projects or products because you think it's a fail, maybe you need to just tweak and refine a couple of things to make it not a fail, and see where you go from there.
Right, exactly. So tell me a little bit more about the live event that you had, because it sounds like it was an incredible experience by everything I was reading online from people.
Yeah, and it was a ton of fun. We had Caleb and Matt Maddox come out and speak on stage, dropping crazy value bombs. And not just that, like, you know how sometimes you'll see a speaker come to an event and leave within an hour after their speech? These guys stuck around the whole time. Like, they were hanging out with guys and, downstairs by the fire pit of the hotel, getting to know one another, learning more about the entrepreneurs and the community. And it was just really cool to have people that came in and just stuck around the whole time. And the whole event, it was definitely a learning experience. There's a lot of things that we would tweak and refine. It was a lot of fun. But for me, it was a little stressful, I have to admit, because of the fact that it was our first big event. So an event like this costs over $25,000 to produce itself for one day, and then if you're going to have like a 3-day event, you're looking at six figures. And so that's what we're going to be moving into for our next Ultimate Stage Experience event. So we created this event for speakers to capture creative cinematography from their speaking on stage, as well as a main interview portion. So we could tell the story in a unique way that captivates other people to book them for their speaking gig. And if you see a lot of speaker trailers out there, they're kind of just, they're lacking in quality. Some of them are really boring. You can't sit through like 30 seconds of it. And it's important to capture the right footage and the right moments on stage. And so that's what we create for our speakers. I think the harder part for us was being able to get commitment from people that signed up for the event to be in the audience, because we need to get better at communicating our message of what our audience receives from coming to listen to our clients speak on stage. And so that was a hard point of holding the event, because we didn't have the right video up that communicated everything that the audience was going to get from being at the event. And that's what we're going to work on for the next one, being able to communicate that message via video and via the landing page that we have set up, and really just have the theme of create, connect, and inspire and have the speeches flow in a way like that as well. So we had 146 people register for the event, but about 90 to 100 people actually showed up. So that was a little like a disappointment in a way, but it was exciting because that's a good chunk of people that came out and support it, which was awesome. But at the same time, for me, because I take on the marketing role, is how can I get more commitment from people that sign up for the event to actually come out and support it and get a bunch of value from being there. So that's going to be something that I work on next time.
Well, and when you think about it, to have 90 to 100 people show up for your first event, that's a huge success. Think about how many times you hear of people, they put on an event and it might be a one-day seminar and it's a handful of people, and that's including family members. So that's a phenomenal success.
Hey, I'm gonna say that this did include some family members and some of our team that I'm counting into that number, and that also includes the speakers included in that number. But yeah, I mean, I'm definitely happy with the turnout, but I just know that there's some things that I could have done better. Like, for instance, usually when somebody signs up for an event, you get specific details. Maybe it's an address or maybe a phone number, because you can do the text messaging automation for the event. Be like, hey, we're going to be having the event start off at 9 a.m. in the central ballroom, or something exciting where people are like, oh, cool, I'm hyped up. Or we're going to be having a private reception and downstairs by the fire pit, or whatever that looks like, just to have memos when you're at these events, because they tend to go long, and you want to be there for the majority of it, but sometimes there's parts that you need to skip out on, and you want to be committed to the rest of it, if that makes sense. And then with the address, I know a couple of event holders that actually send direct marketing materials to the home addresses, which some people might like and some people might not. For me, I love it because I'm getting something other than bills in the mail and that I'm actually excited about. So I'm like, yes. So I think that might be an opportunity too for the next round for me to be able to collect more details, so I can, add more value.
Right. Oh, definitely. There's always ways to add more value and just be innovative, because it makes a difference when you can have that engagement, like, text marketing, because there's nothing worse than you're at an event like, so now that the main part is going on, what's next? And you don't know, and then you find out, oh yeah, there was a big party and you missed out on it. Whoops.
Exactly. Yeah, and you'd be surprised to know that, you wouldn't be surprised to know, I mean, that a lot of people do have events and they have these private receptions for their clients, but sometimes the word doesn't get out to the clients. So then they don't hear about it and they just miss out. And I've had that happen to me a couple of times, actually. So yeah, I think it's important to be communicative and be strategic in a way that gets the engagement that you want and all of that.
Right, exactly. So obviously, with all of this, it's about video production and telling your story. What's one thing that entrepreneurs, business owners, speakers, authors, and everybody else under the sun should truly know about putting their message on video to get their message across?
For one, I think that everybody needs to be authentic in their approach. Whether you're speaking on camera, on stage, on podcasts, just to come off and be the real you. I think so many people try to put on a facade when a camera is in front of their face. It's like, no, just be you. Like, you don't, some people feel comfortable talking straight to the camera and some people don't. And that's why we have different styles of capturing people on camera. So let's say you're really shy, like just do a documentary style, but still be you, tell your story, because people are going to resonate with you and your message, and they're going to come out and reach out to you and connect. And I think that is one of the things that Tamara, my business partner, was able to get across on stage, was she told her story of literally, having a rough patch of her life where she struggled through alcoholism. And those stories are really hard to communicate, but that's the story that you need to share, because the people that are going to be attracted to you are going to relate and resonate with your message that you're sharing.
Right, exactly. You have to be your authentic self because people are going to connect with you. You think about how many other businesses out there that do video production, yet how many people are connecting with you because they relate to your story, your journey, all of it, because of you being yourself.
Exactly. I mean, I think that's something that has helped out a bunch is by sharing our stories, we've attracted people to us, not so much because they're like, oh, I love your videos or epic. It's more along the lines of, I love who you are and I want to work with somebody like you. And another thing is people just want to know that you care. They want to know that you care about them, and that's something that I get emotionally attached to our clients. Like, I want to make sure everything's right and perfect for them. And if something doesn't come out right, like, we're going to fix it and we're going to make it right. And that's a motto that we live by as a company, is that we want all of our clients to be happy with their end product. It's not just like, here's your video, bye. Like, we also connect our clients, make meaningful introductions for our clients. It's not just you work with us, we produce a video, and that's it. And another thing is we make our clients feel comfortable when we're shooting, and we also give them an opportunity to critique it. Not a lot of video production companies allow you to come walk behind the camera to see the shot or to hear the shot or whatever that looks like, and we're open and honest and willing to work with our clients to show them what we're working on for them.
And that in itself is unique in so many fashions, because it's amazing to hear from people of video production, and then once it's done, like, oh my gosh, it's not what I really wanted, but they're kind of stuck with it now.
Yeah, I mean, and another thing that differentiates us is the fact that we don't believe in the studio setup, where we just have our clients come in and we shoot them against a white wall or whatever wall, a green screen, and just have a talking head. We'll storyboard and strategize different locations that make sense to their story, and we'll go to that location. Oh, you want to talk at the top of a mountain? We'll drive the car up there, no problem, which we did, which was very scary for me because I was a little scared of the height, being so high up. I think it was on one of the Hollywood mountains. It's a famous one, and I can't think of the name. So if you can think of the name, it's the one that Jim Carrey climbed to the top of. I think it was Mulberry. I think that's the name of it. He climbed to the top of it, and yeah. So anyway, but yeah, we go to different locations, 2 to 3 locations, and we shoot different shots of them to capture creative B-roll that makes the trailer even more epic.
Oh, excellent. That's what it's about, is the experience ultimately. What's the emotions that you want to convey? And when people can truly connect with you on that level, it makes a difference whether people buy from you or buy from someone else. Exactly.
Just like how you like to learn about people's behaviors. That's a good way to word it.
Right, definitely. So how can people learn more about you and your business and how you can help them show up authentically on video?
Yeah, so I mean, I'm always open to people adding me on Facebook. My name, Danielle Desiree Gomez. Desiree is Desiree. I'm very active on Facebook. Or, I mean, if you want to learn more about the documentary, you can go to inspiredby11.com, or you can go to our website, SeriousTakeProductions.com, where we also have the free documentary up on there as well.
Oh, that's excellent. Well, Danielle, I want to thank you for coming on to the Big Movement Podcast today and sharing your knowledge and your wisdom about showing up authentically, but then also about the journey that you've been on to get to where you're at, because so many people need to know that it's not you just flick a light switch and you're there at the top. You actually do need to climb the mountain.
Exactly. I love that. Thank you so much, Byron, for having me on today.
Thanks for listening to the Big Movement Podcast today. And be sure to subscribe so you don't miss an episode. Now that you've surely been inspired to take your entrepreneurial career and business to the next level, you can stop by the website and get more. And if you're ready to boost your business brand, be sure to grab your free report, 7 Easy Steps to Build Your Brand Today.